He was a handsome and clever businessman, and she was a pretty blonde veterinary assistant who were madly in love. They seemed like the perfect Ken and Barbie couple. However, they would kidnap girls and use them for their depraved sexual needs, videotape the attack, and then kill them. This is the story of Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. Welcome to Enter the Dark. Hello and welcome to Enter the Dark. I am Jan from Film Daddy. With me as always is Les from Tales from the Hangman. How's it going, Les?
It's going well, all good. Hello everyone.
We're just hearing weird noises in his haunted bedroom at the moment, sounding like a banshee or a dog crying. I think it's the kids next door though. It was just weird. We both heard it just and we were like, it's like, could be a whale.
It could be. Sounds like a miniaturized whale, doesn't it?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for all our new subscribers who've come. We did hit 666 yesterday, which was fucking metal as fuck, but we've gone up to 669 now, which...
It's like 6, but all the way around.
Yeah, it's like flipped. It's still metal, but not as metal. I was tempted to, like, make the channel private from then, just so we always stayed at 666, but I didn't. But yeah, if you are new, welcome. We enjoyed doing the last videos there. The one on the satanic police guide to the satanic.
Pastor Cop.
Pastor Cop. He's not the hero we deserve, but he's the hero we need.
Yes.
Good old Pastor Cop. And also on Bobby Joe Stinnett there, which is a weird one as well. But yeah, welcome to the channel. I'm not going to put on another Jonestown record for you, because that was weird enough as it was. Yeah, and I also promised not to talk about my semen today and posting it to anybody. There was enough of that in the last one. But today we are talking about Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, who are the Ken and Barbie Killers. Now, they are pretty famous, these ones, and what they did was absolutely disgusting. But also the aftermath with Carla Homolka. And if anybody has watched Don't Fuck With Cats on Netflix, you would have heard about it. But we will get to that. Les, have you heard much about this one?
Only slightly.
Let's just get into this anyway, because it's going to be a fun one to get into. Paul Bernardo was born into an unusual family. His mother, Marilyn, had been adopted in early life by the well-to-do Toronto lawyer Gerald Eastman and his wife, Elizabeth. Marilyn was raised in a happy, genteel household. Her husband, Kenneth Bernardo, was the son of an Italian immigrant and a woman of English heritage. Kenneth's father made a very successful life for himself in the marble and tile business, but was abusive to his wife and children. Kenneth did not go into the family business, but became an accountant instead. He and Marilyn married in 1960 after her father disapproved of her other suitor, who did not have the education that Eastman demanded in a son-in-law. Eventually, Kenneth and Marilyn settled in a nice middle-class neighbourhood in the Scarborough area of Toronto. The marriage did not go well, and Kenneth, like his father, was physically abusive to his wife. After giving birth to a son and a daughter, Marilyn found refuge in the arms of her previous suitor, the man without the education her father required. Thus was Paul Bernardo conceived illegitimately. The little bastard. Literally a bastard.
Yeah.
Kenneth was very open-minded about this indiscretion, and in August of 1964, the baby's birth certificate gave him the name of Paul Bernardo. Right of him, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's nice.
But Kenneth had difficulties as well.
What sort of difficulties we're talking?
He fondled a young girl and went to court for it.
Because that's a difficulty, isn't it?
And, it's perversion is a difficulty, isn't it?
I guess so. It's Bernardo's children's charity.
Bernardo, not Bernardo.
Right, okay.
Yeah. He started hanging around the neighbourhood at night, peeping into the windows of young women. But worst of all, he started to sexually abuse his young daughter. Marilyn put on more and more weight, and she became grotesquely obese. Signs of severe depression were very noticeable. She stopped taking care of the home and the children and withdrew into her own world in the basement of the house. I wonder if she was like that woman on Jerry Springer who had to be cut out of the house because she was that fat.
Oh wow, you remember that?
Yeah, that was when Jerry Springer was like heartfelt.
That was really heartfelt, especially, a lot of them houses are made of wood over there, aren't they?
What's that got to do with anything?
It's just easier cut. Like, can you imagine, if you've got...
We'll watch it after this, and I think it was stone. I'll let you know.
And them that you are serious and you want to save your life.
I'm serious. I don't want to die.
Good. All right, we can start now. Take down the wall.
Down the wall. Ah. This wall is just completely falling apart. Yeah, grab that tape off. Hold on. Right under the window, Jay. It's a good spot. So we're gonna have to get up and over.
Anyway, the children keenly felt the effects of the mental and emotional turmoil in the household. For a while it looked as though Paul might have escaped the unhappiness that the two older children had experienced. Paul was described as a friendly little boy. He was always happy, a young boy who smiled a lot, and he was so cute with his dimpled good looks and sweet smile that many of the mothers just wanted to pinch on the cheek whenever they saw him.
Who said that?
I haven't finished. He was the perfect child they all wanted. Polite, well-mannered, doing well in school, so sweet in his Boy Scout uniform. That was a neighbour.
It was a neighbour.
A neighbour. Later, as he grew up, he became more involved in scouting. He worked summers as a counsellor, and he was the most popular one with the children. The teenage girls also adored him. He had angelic looks and a shy, pleasing demeanour. The girls who dated him in high school considered him a thoughtful and considerate lover.
Could you say he was scouting for girls?
They were a really shit band.
Yeah, I'll get my coat.
Paul was out to make something of himself. He was intelligent, worked hard in school, held a series of responsible after-school jobs. He had a good head for figures and the makings of a good future businessman. When Paul was 16, he got into an argument with his mother and she told him that he was a bastard. Then she showed him a photo of his real father. The effect on Paul was devastating. After that, he openly mocked and taunted his mother, calling her a slob and a whore.
They're harsh words, they are. You're a slob and a whore.
Well, she is grotesquely obese, and he's like calling her a whore because she had an affair.
Accurate, then.
Yeah, well, considering his mother's infidelity and his father's sick sexual perversions, Paul began to hate his parents. Well, I can't blame him.
No.
I mean, his mum,
I mean, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, but she's suffering from depression and that, and, she's been abused as well. But,
And she's stuck in the basement.
Yeah, can't get up the stairs anymore.
Like that librarian from the film Blade. Big vampire.
Oh, yeah, the big fat guy.
Yeah, he was like... and they put the light on him, like... and it was just a bit pathetic because of his girth.
Then he started hanging around with some neighbourhood boys that had a very negative impact on his behaviour. They were tough macho types and petty thieves. Paul's attitude in general and towards women in particular changed dramatically for the worse. Now, in the early 80s, Paul and his friend were recruited into the Amway business. Now, Amway is a multi-billion-dollar company that uses multi-level marketing techniques to sell cosmetics and household products.
Would this be one of those techniques which has a specific shape to it?
You're thinking of a pyramid scheme, but Amway use the trapezoid. Because you have to pay fees to be part of the business and you earn a percentage of the fees paid by your recruits, Amway is a pyramid scheme in the most traditional sense of the word. Paul used Amway techniques in many facets of his life, not only in sales and business, but also in personal relationships. He brought the books and tapes of famous motivational, get-rich and famous experts. Although Paul didn't make much money from Amway, the philosophy he embraced from it and the other motivational mavericks justified his own crude and selfish longings. Then his interests moved on to the style of television evangelist Jim Bakker, which he emulated perfectly. As he and his friends cruised the bars every night, they spun fantastic stories about who they were to any pretty girl that was naive enough to believe their lies. It seemed to pay off and many were willing to sleep with them. By the time Paul went to college at the University of Toronto, his sexual fantasies had developed a dark side. Forceful anal sex was his preferred means of pleasure. Submissive women were his favourite type. He had a terrible temper and enjoyed humiliating women publicly and would beat up the women that he dated. Him and his friend, Van Smyrnis, started trafficking in stolen goods while Paul was still in college. Paul's appetite for toys, clothes and money could not be supported by any normal job, and he was always looking for that ultimate scam that would pay him enormous sums of money. When Paul graduated from college, he got a job as a junior accountant at Price Waterhouse, and in October of 1987 he met the girl of his dreams, the pretty blonde Carla Homolka. She was born Carla Leanne Homolka on May the 4th, 1970, in Port Credit, Ontario, Canada, to Carol Homolka and Dorothy Seeger. Her father was a Czechoslovakian immigrant.
I thought it sounded a bit Latin, Homolka. The Homolka Cabana.
Take this drug and have forceful anal sex. No. So, Carla's dad worked as a travelling salesman. He often got drunk and fought with her mother, while Carla and her two younger siblings comforted each other. Carla had to be hospitalised frequently with her asthma, and during her formative years she enjoyed drawing and expressed a love for animals. She took up a part-time job in a pet shop when she was in her teens, so she was pretty much a bright student and was liked by most of her teachers. However, she was known to be bossy with her friends. Once during an argument with a friend, she threw their pet hamster out of a window. So, she loves animals, but, we're going to play house, I'm going to be the mum. No, I won't be the mum. See, fucking Skippy here. Woo! Splat. Don't know why you call a hamster Skippy.
Oh, it skipped right out of that fucking window, didn't it?
Skip down the road, under a trailer.
Wonder how aerodynamic an hamster is. She must have got some good air on it.
It depends how, her upper body strength, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and was it a Russian hamster or a full, because them little Russian hamsters could, juggle them and then do two, 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, out the window, gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but she only threw one.
Yeah, she only threw one.
She loves animals, so she left the other one. She just threw the other one and was like, "The fucking happens again."
This happens again. And then that one's probably died from crippling loneliness now, because they're social creatures.
And also, they don't live for that long, so,
Probably dead now anyway.
Yeah.
We don't know where this went, but hamsters.
Hamsters. Don't throw them out of windows. She started reading Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew mysteries at the age of 12 and became obsessed with crime. As she grew up, she became harsher in her ways and enjoyed scaring her friends. She became interested in the occult and often called spirits with her friends.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to latch on to Carla Homolka now, aren't you? If you were 12-year-old Les, pretty blonde Carla, it's let's go call some spirits, she'd be like, yeah, baby.
We'd be like, yeah.
During her high school days, she was also known to be a nonconformist regarding fashion and gave the impression she did not care what others thought of her. She was bold and did not hesitate to mingle with the opposite sex. She dated a boy named Doug and admitted to experimenting with Doug.
Hey, Doug.
Doug funny. We're old, okay? We remember old Nickelodeon shows. So yeah, she dated a boy named Doug and admitted to experimenting with drugs and having sex with him. She often fantasized about weird situations related to death, and while working in a veterinary clinic after school, she would steal sedative pills and she would use them on people and then sexually assault them.
Wow.
So Paula and Carla became sexually obsessed with each other almost immediately. Unlike the other girls he knew, she encouraged his sadistic sexual behaviour. Over the next few years, their relationship intensified. The couple shared and encouraged one another's psychotic behaviour. Bernado began raping women with Holmolka's approval. Bernardo's specialty was attacking women, getting off buzzes, sexually assaulting them, and subjecting them to other humiliations. The police and media dubbed him the Scarborough Rapist, after the Ontario town where many of the sexual assaults were committed. So the relationship wasn't perfect. One source of friction between the couple was Bernardo's incessant complaint that Homolka had not been a virgin when they met. Homolka was aware of Bernardo's attraction to her sexually inexperienced 15-year-old sister, Tammy. Homolka and Bernado came up with a plan to force Tammy into being a surrogate virgin for her older sister. By 1990, Bernado was spending large amounts of time with the Homolka family, and they really liked him. He had become obsessed with Tammy, peeping in her window and entering her room to masturbate while she slept. Ugh, I know, yeah.
That's grim.
Not masturbation, everyone does it. It's just...
Like that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's like putting cum on toast.
Why would you even fucking think about putting cum on toast?
Because, I don't know.
You're fucking sick, man. Carla Homolka helped him by breaking the blinds in his sister's window to allow Bernado access to her. 6 months before their 1991 wedding, Carla Homolka stole the anaesthetic agent halothane from the clinic she worked at. On December 23rd, 1990, Homolka and Bernado administered sleeping pills to the 15-year-old in a rum and eggnog cocktail. After Tammy was unconscious, Homolka and Bernado undressed her and Carla applied a halothane-soaked cloth to her sister's nose and mouth. With Tammy's parents sleeping upstairs, the pair filmed themselves as they raped her in the basement. When Tammy began to vomit, the pair tried to revive her, then called 911, but not before they hid the evidence. Dressed Tammy and moved her into the basement bedroom. A few hours later, Tammy Homolka was pronounced dead at St. Catherine's General Hospital without ever having regained consciousness. So, despite the pair's behaviour of vacuuming and washing laundry in the middle of the night, and despite the presence of a chemical burn on Tammy's face, Niagara Regional Coroner and the Holmolka family accepted the pair's versions of events. The cause of Tammy Homolka's death was accidental, choking on her vomit after consumption of alcohol. The pair subsequently filmed themselves with Carla wearing Tammy's clothing and pretending to be her. After Holmolka and Bernado moved in together, Bernado began blaming Homolka for his sister's death, complaining that Tammy was no longer around for him to enjoy sexually. Homolka decided a young, pretty, virginal teenager, who was only known as Jane Doe, who idolised the attractive older Homolka, would make a good replacement. So one day, Homolka invited the unsuspecting team out to dinner, and as she'd done with Tammy, spiked the girls' drinks. After inviting Jane to their home, Homolka administered halothane and presented her to Bernado. The couple brutally attacked the unconscious teen, videotaping the sexual assaults. The next day when the teenager awoke, she was sick and sore but had no idea of the violations she had endured. Unlike others, Jay managed to survive her ordeal with the couple. Early in the morning on June 15th, 1991, Bernado took a detour through Burlington, halfway between Toronto and St. Catharines, to steal license plates, and that's where he found Leslie Mahaffey. The 14-year-old had missed her curfew after attending a funeral and was locked out of her house and was unable to find anyone with whom she could stay with overnight.
That's some harsh parents, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
After a funeral as well. It's like, well, you were late. So
you stay outside.
Yes, but Grandma's in the ground now. I loved Grandma. Well, you think about Grandma.
While you sleep on the streets. Bernardo approached her and told her he was looking to break into a neighbour's house. Unfazed, she asked if he had any cigarettes. Weird, innit? I'm going to break in a neighbour's house. You got a cigarette?
Don't mind me.
As Bernardo led her to his car, he blindfolded her, forced her into the vehicle and drove her to Port Dalhousie, where he had informed Homolka they had a playmate. Bernado and Homolka subsequently videotaped themselves torturing and sexually abusing Mahaffy, all while listening to Bob Marley and David Bowie. At one point, Bernardo said, "You're doing a good job, Leslie. A damn good job." Then he added, "The next 2 hours are going to determine what I do to you. Right now, you're scoring perfect." On another segment of the tape, which was played at Bernardo's trial, the assault escalated. Mahaffy cried out in pain and begged Bernardo to stop. In the Crown description of the scene, he was sodomizing her while her hands were bound with twine. Later, Mahaffy told Bernardo that her blindfold seemed to be slipping, an ominous development as it signalled the possibility that she might be able to identify both of her tormentors if permitted to live. So, the following day, there's two sides to this story. Bernardo claims Homolka fed her a lethal dose of halcyon, but Homolka claimed that instead, Bernardo strangled her. Either way, the pair put her body into their basement. Now, they decided the best way to dispose of the evidence would be to dismember her and encase each piece in cement. Bernardo brought a dozen bags of cement at a hardware store the following day. Now, he kept the receipts for them, which would screw him over at his trial. Why would you keep the receipts? You're going to fucking claim them back for your taxes? I don't get it.
No, that's bizarre.
Bernardo used his grandfather's circular saw to cut the body. Bernardo and Homolka then made numerous trips to dump the cement blocks in Lake Gibson, 18 kilometres south of Port Dalhousie. At least one of the blocks weighed 200 pounds and proved beyond the pair's patience or abilities to sink. It rested near the shore, and that's where father and son on a fishing expedition discovered it on June the 29th, 1991. And now, June 29th, 1991 was also the day of their wedding. It was an elaborate wedding at Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario. Bernardo orchestrated the wedding plans, which included the couple riding in a white horse-drawn carriage, and Homolka dressed in an elaborate and very expensive white gown.
That's like really posh, innit?
The guests were served a lavish sit-down meal, and after the couple exchanged vows, which included, at Bernardo's insistence, being pronounced man and wife, not husband and wife, and Homolka promising to love, honour and obey her new husband.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can see that, she is submissive to him and he's the dominant one. There's nothing wrong with that if that is your kink. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Don't go around murdering kids.
Yeah.
On the afternoon of April the 16th, 1992, Bernardo and Homolka were driving through St. Catherine's to look for potential victims. It was after school hours on the day before Good Friday. Students were still going home, but by and large the streets were empty. As they passed Holy Cross Secondary School, a main Catholic high school in the city's north end, they spotted Kristen French, a 15-year-old student, walking briskly to her nearby home. The couple pulled into the parking lot of the nearby Grace Lutheran Church, and Homolka got out of the car, map in hand, pretending to need assistance. As French looked at the map, Bernado attacked from behind, brandishing a knife and forcing her into the front seat of their car. From the back seat, Homolka controlled the girl by pulling down her hair. French took the same route home every day, taking around 15 minutes to get home in order to attend to her dog's needs. Soon after she should have arrived, her parents became convinced that she had met with foul play and notified police. Within 24 hours, Niagara Regional Police, or NRP, as we shall refer to them from now on, had assembled a team and searched the area along her route and found several witnesses who had seen the abduction from different aspects, thus giving the police a fairly clear picture of what had happened. Also, one of Kristen's shoes recovered from the parking lot underscored the seriousness of the abduction. Over the 3 days of Easter weekend, Bernardo and Homolka videotaped themselves as they tortured, raped and sodomized Kristen French, forcing her to drink large amounts of alcohol and to behave submissively to Bernardo. At Bernardo's trial, Crown Prosecutor Ray Houlihan said that Bernardo had always intended to kill her because she was never blindfolded and was capable of identifying her captors. Carla videotaped Paul urinating and trying to defecate on Kristen. The following day, the couple murdered French before going to the Homolkas for Easter dinner. Homolka testified at her trial that Bernardo had strangled French for exactly 7 minutes while she watched. Bernardo said Homolka beat her with a rubber mallet because she had tried to escape and that French ended up being strangled on a noose tied around her neck, secured to a hope chest. Either way, immediately after, Homolka went to fix her hair. French's nude body was found in a ditch on April 30th, 1992 in Burlington, approximately 45 minutes from St. Catherine's, and a short distance from the cemetery where Leslie Mahaffey was buried. The body had been washed and the hair had been cut off. It was originally thought that the hair was removed as a trophy, but Homolka testified that the hair had been cut to impede identification. Go on, what?
You just remove the head. That makes more sense.
Yeah, but then you've got a head. You've got this head of what to do.
Well, they put all them other body parts in concrete, didn't they?
Yeah, but he's run out of concrete.
We should go get more. He's not thought this out.
He's not made of money.
He's
you know,
not,
Amway's not paying off.
I just think could have removed his teeth
and cut the hands off.
Yeah,
we've thought about this way too much.
That's worrying. That's worrying that I'm like, well, he could have done this. Critiquing this motherfucker's work.
Cutting her hair off, you fucking amateurs. Anyway, the police first became aware of the handiwork of Paul Bernado in his incarnation as the Scarborough Rapist. Detective Constable Steve Irwin. Good eye, mate.
I'm going to jam my thumb up its butthole.
How come now, anytime we think of Steve Irwin, we just think about the South Park episode where I'm going to jimmy my thumb up this crocodile's butt. Oh, he's really pissed off now. Sorry. This is a really disturbing case. Anyway, Detective Constable Steve Irwin, of Toronto's Metropolitan Police was deeply involved in that particular serial rape case. There were a lot of similarities in the stories the victims had told, and the police were sure it was one man. Just before Christmas in 1987, one of his victims gave a very specific description of her rapist. He was good-looking, about 6 foot tall, clean-shaven and had no tattoos. Her description and the composite picture she helped develop resulted in an exact likeness of Paul Bernado, but the police did not publish the photo. Why? If you've got a serial rapist...
Let the public know what they look like.
Yeah, because someone could have been there. Oh, look, looks like Paul Bernado. Police, man. Fuck.
Every case we've done.
Literally every case we've done, the police have been shit. Anyway, one of Paul's old girlfriends, Jennifer Galligan, had gone up to the police several times about Paul regarding his brutal rape, physical abuse of her, and his threats to do her bodily harm. There were coincidences which tied Bernardo to the rapes that were going on at the same time. The rapist drove a white Capri and so did Bernardo. Bernardo lived in the vicinity of where the rapes took place. A report was filed, but nothing came of it. Finally, in May of 1990, years after the rapes began, the police decided to finally publish the composite picture which the victims had agreed upon was the likeness of their attacker. That picture, plus the $150,000 reward, initiated a flood of tips. By this time, Paul had quit his position with Price Waterhouse and he was living entirely on his cigarette smuggling income. But one of his former colleagues at the accounting firm saw the newspaper picture. They marvelled at how much it resembled Paul. An employee of Paul's bank contacted the police and reported that Bernardo looked like the picture. However, at this point in time, the police were inundated with similar calls and did not have the manpower to follow up on all of them. Detective Steve Irwin centralised all the physical evidence gathered from the rape victims under one individual, Kim Johnston, in the forensics laboratory. From the semen samples, she was able to determine that the rapist was a non-secretor and his blood type factors, which put him in the 12.8% of the male population. Eventually, a number of Paul's acquaintances contacted the police about him, and Irwin paid Bernardo a visit. Paul did not strike Irwin as the kind of personality to be a serial rapist.
Because they just, serial rapists, as we all know, generally have horns on their heads.
He did take a blood, saliva and hair sample from Paul anyway. Good lad.
Yeah, good. Nice one. Get him to secrete that shit.
Those samples, along with 230 more from other suspects, were handed over to Kim Johnston. Only 5 of the 230 samples fit the blood factors of the attacker. Paul Bernado was one of those 5. His sample was resubmitted for additional testing in April of 1992. By that time, the Scarborough Rapist had mysteriously ended his attacks, and the case did not have the urgency and the priorities that it had 2 years earlier when the attacks were in progress. The Scarborough Rapist samples went onto the back burner. So you've narrowed it down to 5 people.
You're just just put a pin in that.
Yeah,
one,
let's put it's one of these 5. Now that Paul and Carla were living in the murdering in St. Catharines, the police investigation was centred in the Niagara Falls area. Superintendent Vince Bevan was in charge once the body of Leslie Mahaffey was found. After the death of Kristen French, the Ontario government formed the Green Ribbon Task Force.
Green Ribbon?
Green Ribbon?
Like that blue, them wafers. Blue Riband.
Yeah, I hate them. They're shit.
They are shit, aren't they?
Shit biscuits. Hotlines and a base of operations were set up just outside of St. Catharines. Forensic experts of the American FBI advised the task force. Meanwhile, Bernardo's name surfaced once again from one of the many tips that police received. 2 policemen called on Paul at his 57 Bayview home. Paul was very gracious and polite during the interview and admitted that he had been a suspect in the Scarborough rapes because of his facial similarities to the composite picture. He's a ballsy motherfucker, isn't he? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, I can understand why you're doing this. By the way, I look like the Scarborough Rapist. Very much like him. The police noted that Paul was very clean-cut and good-looking, that he was intelligent and cooperative, and that his home was very clean and orderly. They also noted that he drove a Nissan, which looked nothing like a Camaro, which they were looking for.
Because you can't change your car.
Nevertheless, the 2 policemen tried to contact Detective Steve Irwin in Toronto to ask about the results of the inquiry into the Scarborough Rapist. 8 days later, Irwin responded to the message and explained that the final testing of Bernardo's blood and saliva samples had not been done. Thus, technically, Bernardo had not been cleared as a suspect. But then in February of 1993, several years after blood samples had been taken from Paul Bernardo, the forensic laboratory in Toronto finally got around to analysing his blood.
Hooray!
Well done! Jesus. The test proved conclusively that Bernardo had raped the 3 women victims from whom they had semen samples, and Detective Irwin put Bernardo under surveillance. What he learned was that Bernardo had just been charged with the assault in St. Catharines, but the assault charges had been filed by his wife, Carla Homolka. The plot thickens
like gravy.
When Paul started using Carla as a punching bag in the summer of 1992, he really compromised his future. Regardless of the insane things that Carla had put up with from Paul, Physically abusing her pushed her to the limit, but even with 2 black eyes and serious bruises, she didn't leave him. In early January 1993, her parents intervened and persuaded Karla to take refuge in the home of one of her sister Laurie's friends, whose husband was a Toronto cop. The Niagara police were brought into the situation and took Karla to the hospital. All of this was before the Toronto police had the forensic evidence to convict Paul as the Scarborough Rapist. In early February, when the police investigation of Paul intensified, both the Toronto Police and the Ontario Green Ribbon Task Force wanted to interview Karla. They also wanted to fingerprint her and question her about a Mickey Mouse watch that was very similar to Kristen French's watch. Who was it that we did? It was in Belgunnis, wasn't it? The guy who fancied her, who helped to kill the people he was wearing his coat and watch.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to say, somebody listening to us now, some of you, I'm going to say at least one of you, may kill somebody. There's a good chance that somebody listening...
We've read the comments.
Yeah, we've read the comments. Some of you are nice, or they're supportive, some misguided. One guy was racist, but he can't come on the page anymore. But I'm thinking one of you may kill somebody. And if you do, I'm giving you this out now. Don't keep any of the clothes or watches or rings or jewellery or anything like that and wear them, because it's just going to come back and bite you on the arse.
The Wests did it as well. Rosemary West, she was wearing that girl's slippers, wasn't she?
And that's the stupidest thing, innit? The slipper, wear these slippers. What, $2.99 down the market? I can't afford that. I've got to buy more lingerie because I'm a prostitute.
And more concrete. Fred's got to do the patio.
Yeah. Got to buy more topsoil for the garden. That's my Rose West impression. Can't wait to do the Wests.
No, nor can I.
Anyway, initially, several Toronto detectives interviewed Karla for almost 5 hours. By the kinds of questions they asked, Karla understood that the police had tied together the Scarborough rapes and the murder in St. Catharines. Karla was understandably nervous and told her uncle that Paul was the serial rapist and that he killed Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. Karla got herself a real good lawyer. As a veterinary assistant, Karla had taken special care with the cancer-stricken Dalmatian of lawyer George Walker. Over a period of many interviews with Karla, George Walker realised that she was not necessarily the innocent victim of Paul Bernado that she painted herself out to be. Yet he did not really understand at that point just what exactly her role had been in the crimes. Some kind of immunity would have been desirable for his client, but he really wasn't sure what could be negotiated on her behalf in exchange for his complete cooperation. In mid-February, Bernado was arrested in conjunction with the Scarborough rape and the murders of Mahaffy and French. Karla was shocked and afraid. She assuaged her anxieties with large amounts of painkillers and alcohol. On February the 19th, police executed the search warrant for Paul and Karla's house, found an amazing amount of evidence. Paul had written a description of every one of the Scarborough rapes, plus an extensive library of books and videos on sexual deviation, pornography and serial killers. Les, if police ever come in your house, you are screwed.
Yes.
I'm just going to say that now. The police also found one brief home video that indicated there had been more than one lascivious person in the Bernado household. Quite explicitly, the short video showed Karla as an enthusiastic lesbian in sexual acts with 2 other women. You want to see that video now, don't you? A week later, George Walker and Maury Siegel, a plea bargain specialist for the Attorney General, discussed the deal for Karla. Karla would get 12 years in prison time for each of the 2 victims, but the sentences will be served concurrently. She will be eligible for parole in a little over 3 years with good behaviour. The government even agreed to contact the parole board on Karla's behalf, pointing out to them the importance of her testimony against Paul. Siegel would do what he could to arrange for Karla to serve out her sentence in a psychiatric hospital instead of a prison. The trial would be very brief and she would waive her right to a preliminary hearing. In exchange for this leniency, Karla would agree to tell the absolute truth about her involvement in the crimes and everything she knew about them. Karla agreed with this unconditionally. In early March, Karla was checked into a psychiatric hospital for assessment. She was given heavy doses of drugs and insisted on being given even larger doses. Does that work? You're into like, here's some these drugs. No, can you give me more? Yeah, okay.
Keeps her quiet, I guess.
Yeah, but you can't just demand more drugs.
I think it's interesting how they were just like, oh, okay, have this amount of drugs. More drugs.
Okay.
Okay.
Karla's trial had a media circus atmosphere about it when she began on June 28, 1993. Her psychiatric reports helped set the stage for this plea bargain deal. Dr. Malcolm, the psychologist, concluded that Karla knew what was happening, but she felt totally helpless and unable to act in her own defence or in anyone else's defence. She was, in my opinion, paralysed with fear, and in that state became obedient and self-serving. Bollocks. At the end of the trial, the media people left, allowed only to report a few of the details so the jury pool would be selected in the future of Paul's trial would not be tainted by information they heard or read before the trial. Expecting a public outcry over the plea bargain, Murray Siegel chose to make a statement. Why not a greater penalty in light of the horrendous facts? Without her, the true state of affairs might never be known. A guilty plea is the traditional hallmark of remorse. Her age, her lack of criminal record, the abuse and the influence of her husband, and her somewhat secondary role were factors. She's unlikely to reoffend. You're just covering your own arse there, really. Karla left the trial after receiving the agreed sentence and prepared herself for what was sure to be an ordeal, the trial of her husband, Paul Bernado. The trial of Paul Bernado was delayed for 2 years after his arrest. One of the reasons for the delay was Bernado had placed his first lawyer, Ken Murray, in a very difficult ethical situation. Bernado had given Murray the videotapes that he and Karla had made of their adventures, believing that by doing so, they would never get to be into the hand of prosecutors. However, the prosecutors knew of the videotapes from Karla and had wiretapped Murray's conversations with Bernado. Eventually, the pressure increased and Murray had to do something about the videotapes in his possession. The videotapes were turned over to the prosecutors and Murray withdrew from the case. Veteran defence lawyer John Rosen took his place as Bernado's lawyer. The series of activities alone caused a delay of 1 year in the start of the trial. In May of 1995, Bernado's trial began in Judge Patrick Lesage's courtroom with the videotapes as critical pieces of evidence. Bernado faced 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault, 2 counts of forcible confinement, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of performing an indignity on a human body.
An indignity?
What would that be? Would he be pissing on it?
I'd say so. He tried defecating on her as well, didn't he?
For a public who had been denied access to the information revealed at Carla Homolka's trial almost 2 years earlier, the day-long opening address of the lead prosecutor Ray Houlihan was a relentless avalanche of sexual degradation, brutality and murder. In painstaking detail, Houlihan described the Crown's belief that Paul had first dominated Karla, reducing her to a compliant victim through the systematic physical and mental abuse, then used her to exploit his sexual fantasies in the rape of Tammy Holmolka, a rape in which Karla participated. Unable to shake free of Paul's violent control, and scared he would reveal her role in Tammy's death to her parents, Karla then took part in the rapes and murders of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. Crown Prosecutor Ray Houlihan began with a segment showing Karla naked, masturbating with the camera focused on her vagina. Viewing the videos had an electrifying effect on the courtroom.
Of course it did.
Of course it's going to. There were gasps of surprise and disgust, perhaps even shock, along with plenty of embarrassed giggles that could be heard throughout the courtroom as the camera lingered on Homolka's exposed body for several minutes as she stimulated herself. For the previous 2 years, ever since her arrest, Homolka's face had been almost as well known as the Prime Minister's. She had been seen on television and footage taken at her wedding and with friends and at her trial. But few people in the courtroom that day were expecting to see a XXX rated video, a close study of the country's most infamous woman in a variety of sexually explicit positions.
A close study in every sense of the word.
You could see what she had for a tea.
Maple syrup.
It seemed like an odd way for the prosecutor to treat his star witness. However, Houlihan explained that the dialogue in the videos had been scripted by Bernado, and he was a good example of how he forced his will on Karla.
No, that's just good production.
Yeah, it's just good production values.
Yeah, he went to some effort there.
The tape was clearly geared to sexually excite Bernado as Karla started talking of procuring 13-year-old virgins for him to rape. The whole dialogue was an articulation of Bernado's sexual fantasies with the goal of bringing him to climax. Karla played the role of sex slave and Bernado was the king. As more of these videotapes of Leslie, Kristen and Jane were shown, the jury were provided with indisputable and powerful evidence of Paul Bernado's sexual depravity. As if that were not enough, Karla was called to the stand to elaborate on what the jurors had just seen and heard. Was that? Yeah, so that's me. I've got my leg up there. I've got that butt plug going up there. And yeah, and I'm shoving that dildo up there.
And I'm using this little vibe here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Guys, take notes.
Yeah,
because your wife will thank you.
I'm pretty sure it's self-explanatory what she was doing.
Yeah, you don't need to. I think the judge.
The judge was like, "Tell me about it." God.
Is this really necessary, Your Honour? Yes.
And he's just like, "I'm retiring to my chambers. I'll be back in 5 minutes.
We shall.
Send me a wet cloth.
We shall adjourn." And you just hear.
You just hear.
That's the gavel. Order.
Just gonna go bang the gavel.
We're going to hell. Oh.
Bang the gavel.
Bang the gavel.
What she described in her relationship with Paul was an escalating theme of sexual degradation similar to what Paul had begun with other girlfriends before he met Carla. In Carla, who was the willing victim, the degradation knew no boundaries. He made her wear a dog's choke collar while he inserted a wire bottle into her vagina, and he almost strangled her with a wire cord to satisfy his sadistic fantasies. Paul told her that his choke fantasy was important to him and it wouldn't hurt anybody. He told her she was nothing without him, and he would call her names like slut, bitch and cunt. When the defence had its turn in the courtroom, John Rosen attacked Carla's credibility. His goal was to show that she was not the victim she portrayed herself to be, but a willing participant in the couple's rape and murder spree. He was at least successful in showing Carla to be a morally vacuous woman with no remorse for her part in these crimes. In particular, Kristen's murder had to be committed at a particular time so that Carla and Paul could spend Easter dinner with Carla's parents. Immediately after Kristen was strangled, Carla left to blow dry her hair. If it was not immediately clear at the trial, it became shortly after that Carla had cleverly manipulated the circumstances of her cooperation with the government to engineer one of the worst deals the Canadian government has ever made with a criminal witness. Regardless of Carla's degree of guilt or innocence and the deal she made with the authorities, it did not save Bernardo from the outrage he had kindled in the minds of the jurors. On September the 1st, 1995, Bernardo was convicted on all charges against him regarding the kidnappings, rapes and murders of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. He also faced trials in the death of Tammy Holmolka and the serial rapes in Scarborough. Under Canadian law, Bernardo can apply for parole after 25 years in prison, though it's unlikely he would be successful in any parole bid. On July the 4th, 2005, Carla was released from prison. She was given a series of restrictions as part of her release. Among them, she had to tell police her home and work address, who she is living with, and if it ever changed. She also had to tell police if she ever changed her name, and she was forbidden to be with people who were under the age of 16. But on November the 30th, 2005, restrictions were lifted by a Superior Court judge. He stated there was not enough evidence that they were needed. I know. There's lots of evidence. Carla went on to marry her lawyer's brother, Thierry Bourdelet, and in 2007 it was reported that she gave birth to a baby boy, moved to Guadeloupe to escape the stigma of which had attached to it in Canada. She was weirdly romantically linked to Luca Rocco Magnotta, who is known from the Netflix series Don't Fuck With Cats, where he fed kittens to snakes, placed them in vacuum bags and sucked the air out, and later dismembered a Chinese student called Jun Lin in Montreal in 2012. However, Luca never dated Carla, but was obsessed with her, and even tried to mail parts of Jun Lin's body to Carla's sister.
I really need to watch Don't Fuck With Cats.
You do, man. It's cooked crazy.
That's going on later.
But during Luca's trial, it came to light that Carla had moved back to Quebec, and in 2017, it was reported that she was volunteering at Notre Dame de Grace, a private elementary school in Canada.
Nothing could go wrong there.
When some obviously concerned parents complained about the fact that Carla was looking after their children, the school said that their children would not be welcomed back the following year.
What?
Yeah, they didn't say, oh yeah, they were like, your kids aren't going to be welcome back. The school hadn't done a background check on Holmolka, but were aware of her history before she started volunteering. Yes, only in a private Christian school are they okay with a child kidnapper, rapist and murderer looking after your children, but not okay about you voicing your concern about it.
Yeah, I can't believe that. Just well, don't you dare think of sending your kids back here. We'll employ whoever the hell we want.
Paul Bernado still denies he killed anyone, admitting to all the sexual assaults but saying it was only when Carla got involved that women died. But Carla is adamant that it was still Paul Bernado who killed the girls. He was denied parole in 2018, where he claimed to have discovered and confronted the psychological reasons for his sadistic sexual atrocities, including a series of rapes and the murder of 2 teenage girls. He said they stemmed from low self-esteem, misguided coping mechanisms, cognitive distortions, and the disinhibitory effects of stress and alcohol.
That's just what you tell an ex-girlfriend. He's not trying very hard, is he?
Yeah. He said, "It devastates me what I did in the past, and I cry all the time. What I did was so dreadful." Asked why it hurts to cry, he said, "It hurts. Because I did horrible things." But he wasn't actually crying as he said these things. He said, "Every day I wake up and I treat people well. I don't disassociate what I did." He said over and over again that he cries a lot, and he is ashamed. Frequently, he seemed to be approaching something like remorse, but then would drop in comments such as, "My biggest problem is communication skills." His parole was denied.
He's not even trying. What a shit sociopath he is.
Yeah, so that was Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. Like I said, it's a famous one. Most of you probably heard of it. But taking aside the fucking horrendous attacks and everything they've done, what the fuck were the Canadian government thinking of offering her that plea deal? It was like the most lenient of all the deals, and you could see, like in the trial, that she'd literally wrapped them around her little finger and was like, "Oh no, I'm the poor beaten wife." You know, I can't believe that she actually got away with it, and this is why she's the most hated woman in Canada. You know, imagine that though. You'd find out she's looking after your children at school. You go to the headmaster, "I'm complaining about this woman who participated in murder, rape and that." And he's like, "Yeah, don't bring your kids back next year." Fucking Christians, man.
Yeah, that's... Is she more hated than the Montreal screw job, do you think?
Definitely.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, watch Don't Fuck With Cats.
Okay.
You'll see how hatey Carla Homolka is. She's like, everybody hates her.
That's my
Imagine
homework.
Casey Anthony in America, how hated she is.
Yeah.
Carla Homolka in Canada.
Right, I'll watch Don't Fuck With Cats tonight.
Yeah, watch it. It's really good. But them two as a couple, I think it was just sort of the perfect storm of she encouraged him, she liked being dominated and stuff. I think they both should be in prison for the rest of their lives. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I was just thinking of the videos, sorry.
I heard that they had been leaked, but I'm not sure.
I'm not going to look.
I think they got destroyed after the trial.
It was just rather strange that they were to show that in the courtroom. I'm like, and then, like you say, it was fairly obvious what's going on.
But guys, what did you think? Should she still be in prison? Should she stay in there forever?
Surely shouldn't be in that fucking school.
No. And Paul Bernardo, he should never get out again.
No.
But like I said, guys, thank you for joining us. If you are new to the channel and you do like what we do, please hit that subscribe button and also that bell button so you know when we do release them. Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Also email us at enterthedarkpodcast@gmail.com with any suggestions of stories that you want to see us cover. I've been Jan from Film Daddy. This is Les from Tales from the Hangman. We shall see you soon.